Okay, thank you ever so much for that introduction. So my name's Jane Johnson. I am a clinical placement facilitator at the Robert Jones and Agnes Hunt Orthopaedic Hospital in Shropshire, and I've been asked today to present some of the work that we've been doing around maximising our placement capacity and making a team-based learning approach work for us. So thank you very much for joining. A little bit of background. The Robert Jones and Agnes Hunt Orthopaedic Hospital is a leading orthopaedic centre of excellence. We're a single site hospital based in Oswestry, for those of you who don't know. That's in Shropshire, so we're close to the border with Wales, and as such we serve the population of both England and Wales, as well as acting as a national healthcare provider. So we provide clinical placements to 3 partner HEIs within region, and also placements for our Welsh partners for a non-commissioned program. So following on the success of the clinical placement expansion programme, which was administered by NHS England for nursing placements in 2019, the scheme was repeated in 2020 in order to build that placement capacity and help recover and sort of reimagine placements post-COVID, and obviously to support the training capacity growth. So as a placement provider, we made a bid for that additional placement funding from HEE, and we were successful. So how we chose to invest that funding to maximise our placement capacity. So we invested the funding to support a full-time practice development post, to embed a team-based learning approach to support placement expansion. We chose to adopt this method following an earlier attempt to introduce a model of collaborative learning in practice back in 2018. And we've heard, reference to the CLIP model during today's sessions. But for those of you who are unfamiliar with CLIP, the model owes much of its structure from the work that was carried out at the VU University Medical Centre in Amsterdam, and also Charlotte Lebeau. I'm sure I'm pronouncing that right, but I may not be, so apologies if not. And she's a senior lecturer at the University of East Anglia who introduced the CLIP model to the UK. Collaborative learning in practice is by no means a new concept, and in fact a number of trusts and HEIs across the country and county have adopted this approach to increase their placement capacity and enhance that placement satisfaction and improve our patient experience. And you may be one of them, and I'd certainly love to hear from you if you are. So case studies and clinical outcomes have been published and shared, and that work has influenced and supported us to reintroduce that CLIP model, which we've chosen to call a team-based learning approach. We haven't reinvented the wheel by any means, and we owe a huge thank you to those of you who have shared your experiences and outcomes. So just a little bit of background really, for those of you who are unfamiliar with the CLIP model, it's a method of organising placement learning which enables students to care for their patients and act as team members within the placement area earlier and more effectively. It increases the number of student nurses learning together on placements with a coaching and supervision provided from other registered members of the team, predominantly nurses, but we do like to include our multidisciplinary team. Students allocated to the placement are separated into learning bays with a coach who facilitates up to 3 students to undertake holistic care of a group of patients.
Jane,
the students,
Jane, sorry to interrupt your flow. And people,
okay?
we're not seeing the slides.
Are you not?
Jane, we've
No.
got we have the title slide, but perhaps if you played the presentation, it might. Sorry to interrupt your flow.
Thank you, Colin, for that. Apologies, everybody. I think I'm just going to have to click and do it this way. Can you see that?
That's much better, thank you.
Is that okay? Apologies, everybody. Forgive me, where was I? So the students are allocated to a placement area and they're separated into learning bays with a coach who facilitates up to 3 students to undertake that holistic care of a group of patients. The students are encouraged to take the lead in their practice, caring for their own patient group and supporting the learning through identified daily learning outcomes. With the introduction of the new standards for student support set by the Nursing and Midwifery Council, this has kind of made it a little bit easier for us because the model aligns and the approach emphasises that peer collaboration and coaching rather than that one-to-one mentoring style. It's been suggested that the benefits of CLIP can actually include introducing students to the real world of nursing practice earlier, fostering that greater responsibility of patient care, and preparing students more effectively for registration. So why we chose to invest that funding, that HEE funding, in a practice development post. So as I sort of touched upon earlier, I was introduced to the CLIP model by a HEI colleague back in 2018, and also fellow CPFs within the region who were already piloting this approach. I was feeling quite highly enthused and obviously was keen to implement this approach within our organisation. I could really see it fitting, and especially as a means of strengthening our placement capacity and enhancing the students' learning experience. The level of preparation and support required to actually implement this model of collaborative learning in practice is labour intensive, and it did significantly impact on my workload commitments. And for me, as a lone clinical placement facilitator at the time, it was a challenge, and most definitely one of the reasons why it wasn't duplicated thereafter. Another key challenge and a reason was the logistical aspect of around organising the students and allocating them from across each part of their programme. And that's largely due to the fact, you know, the placement overlaps within the university planners who we provide the placements for. So we, like others, implemented at the time in 2018 a CLIP model using a mixture of students from the different year groups to support and learn from each other under the supervision of a learning coach. Given the fact that we received very positive feedback from the students and staff, it was highly disappointing that we weren't able to pursue this. But with HE funding, it's allowed us to invest in a full-time practice development post to really embed that collaborative learning in practice and push that forward. So where we're at now with
Hi, Linda, sorry, could you put yourself on mute for those who are not on mute?
Thank you. So where we're at now with the help of HEE funding. So on the 8th of February 21, our practice development nurse came into post, and with her she brought a wealth of experience which made life a lot easier for me, and we kind of hit the ground running. Up until the 1st of March, we utilised our time updating our information resources that we'd used previously in 2018, including learning diaries and guides for both students and the staff supporting them. We also facilitated coaching sessions for the first area where we were going to introduce the team-based learning. We made the decision to implement the model one ward at a time, and that was largely down to the influence of the pandemic. And we also decided to allocate students from the same cohort based on the struggles that we'd previously encountered with the overlap of the university planners. So on the 1st of March, we commenced our first team-based learning pilot, which has not long come to a close, and we're now in the process of collating all our feedback and evaluating the evidence. But just a little, snapshot of the feedback that we've gained so far from our students. they acknowledge that that team-based learning approach has given them the opportunity to be more hands-on. They were given more responsibility on the ward, working alongside their supervisors, and that peer support. So they had that, what they refer to as a bubble, and it made them feel more comfortable knowing that they could speak to others who were experiencing the same, you know, sort of issues, and they found that really reassuring. I know that it's very early in our journey, and it's clear to see the benefits of adopting this approach can not only positively impact in the preparation of our future generation, but also the provision of our pre-registration programmes. So that's kind of a little bit about where we're at the moment. And I'd be ever so grateful, happy to take any questions, or if any of you would like to ask any questions, that would be fantastic.
Right. So we've got one question in the chat box from Jackie Alexander from Shrewsbury and Telford. So it's yes, we do.
I have to thank Jackie Alexander from the Royal Shrewsbury and Telford Hospital, because they've been quite influential in supporting Robert Jones with this.
So her question is, what were the challenges of implementing this approach with only one cohort?
I suppose you haven't got that level of, when we piloted it with the 3, you've got that peer interaction, you know, and the first years can see, you know, that skill acquisition that they've sort of, and the journey that they've been. But at the same token, I don't feel during this pilot that it didn't actually have a huge effect. In fact, the students, although being it from the same part in their programme, like they'd said in their evaluative feedback at the moment, that they found it really, really beneficial. It's very early.
Okay, so the floor is quite open to everyone. If anyone wants to put their hands up for any more questions for Jane. Anyone? Just try and see if there's anything else.
Has anybody, just out of interest, has anybody actually fully embedded CLIP within their organisations? I'd be really keen for some feedback.
Don't be shy, guys. So I've got a couple of minutes. Oh, another one. So again from Jackie, any issues with asking these students to do similar off-duty?
Actually, they fully embraced it, and I think they were quite shocked when we handed that over to them. Obviously, we had to explain, you know, how important it was within their sort of assessment journey that they needed to spend that quality time with, you know, and have that their meetings arranged for their midpoint and, you know, their assessments. And at the same token, we gave them a collective of coaches or practice supervisors, and they understood that, you know, they needed some kind of form of continuity, but they fully embraced that sort of team-based approach. And actually the staff within our area were really responsive to this new team-based approach. I mean, obviously they'd heard about our previous attempt to introduce CLIP, but having Claire, I can't emphasise having Claire, who was our practice development nurse, there on hand, who was, you know, there at the start and end of each shift. I really can't just say how important and what a huge benefit that was. You know, from a clinical placement facilitator's point of view, it's finding that capacity to fully invest that time. So to me, I think overall, I think that's the one thing that is standing out with this pilot at the moment. Thank you, Jackie.
Thanks, Jane. Actually, we've got one comment and another question come through. So a comment from Lisa Fuchs. Sorry if I pronounced that incorrectly. So she just says UHL use a version of CLIP and they call it FLIP. So that was just a comment.
I like that.
And then a question from Kimberly Bibby from University Hospitals Birmingham NHS Trust. So she says, did you have any professions supervising students outside of their clinical professional background? And if you did, how was that received on both sides?
Formally, no, but uninformally, yes. That's our next sort of aim within this pilot. Although our fellow professionals and doctors themselves are fully on board and they're fully prepared, I think, in all honesty, it was very much driven behind our nursing force. You know, although the students did have the opportunity to spend time working with other members of the multidisciplinary team, which is, you know, as required. But I think my challenge is preparing our fellow professionals into that practice supervisory role to support, you know, to really embed that team-based approach in supporting the students. So in all honesty, it is very much heavily nursing driven at the moment.
Thank you. Let me just see what else has come through. Yeah, I think for questions, a bit quiet at the moment, so I think that's it for now, unless, is there anything else for anyone? Oh, one more, I think. So from Nancy Manners, from Nottingham City Care Partnership, have any colleagues got examples of a similar or transferable model working in a community setting? Do you want me to repeat that?
Good question. Within Shropshire, Telford and Wrekin, I can't answer that, and I don't know whether our colleagues are on this call. Perhaps Jackie Alexander or Donna Clark may be able to answer that one for Nancy.
I've not been aware. This is Jackie now. I've not been aware of any anything within community. I don't know if Sarah Ewbury's on the call or not, but not been aware. As Jane's aware, we've used some of the team-based learning approach as well at Shrewsbury and Telford Hospital, but specifically in ward environments rather than in some of our more critical care areas. So it'd be interesting to hear if it's worked in community anywhere.
Hi, it's Sarah Ewbury here. I am here. So we're the Community Health Trust within Shropshire. For a long time, I've been really keen to do something in community, but to date, not been able to achieve anything. Similar to Jane, really, I'm the only person supporting placements across the whole of Shropshire community and leading on preceptorship and also supporting trainee nurse associates. So I think for us to really be able to develop that model within Shropshire community, we would need a similar investment really that Jane's described. So keen to do so and really keen to hear from community trusts that have managed it. But I think because I'm a lone person on my own, it would be quite difficult to achieve.
Thank you, Sarah. And again, I can't reiterate that fact, you know, having the opportunity to invest that HE funding in a supportive role to push this forward has been really key. I mean, as I said, we're very much in the early stages of reintroducing this model, but I can already see the benefits of having that key role in place. Specifically, we touched upon the skills in annexes A and B, and having someone from a critical care background along with a pre-operative assessment background, the skills that Claire has brought with her to this role has been phenomenal. And she's been able to spend some time as well with the students working on skill acquisition. So yeah, it's been really imperative for us. Thanks,
Jane. I don't think there's anything else, and we've got 2 minutes left, so I'm not sure if should we leave it as it is and everyone can get ready for the next sessions.
Happy with that. Thank you everybody for taking the time to listen. As I said, thank you for your comments.
And thank you, Jane.
With placement expansion.
Bye everyone.
Thank you everybody.